Hi, I'm Pastor Dave, and I'd like to welcome you to our youth ministry at Bethany Church, Area 51. What is going on, Bethany Church in Area 51? Welcome back. I'm Pastor Dave. This week we're going back to basics again and going to the fourth commandment. But first, what's to come? What are we going to do when we meet next? Well, this year alone, we start off the school year with a pizza party. We had games. We had beanbag toss. We had food, of course, ice cream. We had video games, darts. It's a great time. Great turnout, too. We also had bowling night. And then we had, this last week was Harvest Happenings with a chili cook-off, trunk or treat, and some games. Good times. But the most important thing is at our meetings, which is Sunday nights between 6 and 7:30 p.m., excuse me, we learn about God and God's role in our lives and how we can please Him. What does God want for us? How can we use God's example and God's book, His instruction manual for life? These are important things. That's why we're kind of going back to basics with this series. Coming up though, February 17th through 19th, put this in your calendar, is going to be Camp Lael. If you're in high school or middle school, or you have a student in high school or middle school that you want to attend, it's a 3-day thing. It's awesome. It's up in Lapeer. It's snowy. There's lots of games and fun, and there's always some great speakers and some pretty good food too. Join us. We'll give you some more details coming up soon, but just pencil that in on your calendars. It's going to be a good time. So for today, back to basics number 4. Got me thinking. There's a lot of symbolism in Scripture. A lot of it is meant to be there on purpose, to make you look back. In Western culture, when we write a poem or when we write a article or something like that, we typically write it from start to finish in chronological order. Now, in the Hebrew literature and poetry, it wasn't always like that. They usually did things in a cyclical type nature, where every time the plot would get thicker, every time the same ideas passed by, there would be more and more and more complexity to the story. Kind of interesting. The Bible is very similar to that. It's quite refreshing, really. When we think about Numbers, we see that too. Early on in the Old Testament, we see the Israelites being freed. The entire nation is in captivity to the nation of Egypt. They are freed by God, and they mess some things up and end up having to do 40 years in the wilderness, wandering around in the wilderness waiting for their promised land. That journey could have taken only 4 weeks, but instead it took them 40 years. Why? Because they were training for something bigger and better. God wanted them to get on the right level. So, sorry, that picture's terrible. Totally not photoshopped. Likewise, when Jesus started his ministry, he spent 40 days in the wilderness, being tempted by Satan. He too was training himself, training his mind, body, and spirit and soul, so that way he could be the most effective Messiah that he could. We also see the number 7 a lot. God created the universe and the world in 7 days, right? There's 7 festivals in the Hebrew calendar. But 7 also comes in with the Sabbath, and that's for this particular commandment, number 4. It says, and it starts out Exodus 20, it goes from 8 to 11. So Exodus 20, verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. Neither you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor the foreigners residing in your towns. For in the 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, but he rested on the 7th day. Therefore, the Lord has blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. We go to church on what we call the Sabbath day, the Sunday. That's God's day for us. We make that day holy because it reminds us of God's sacrifice for us when he went to that cross. It was a day that God rose. He conquered death and conquered Satan on the Sabbath. And we honor him and remember his sacrifice by keeping that holy, keeping that day set aside, keeping that day special for him. You know, the ancient Israelites also celebrated the Sabbath to remember what God did for them in the wilderness. He continued to provide for them. They would get manna 6 days a week, and on the seventh, they would keep that manna and it would hold them over. But any other day, if they kept the manna, which was bread that came from the sky, basically, littered all over the ground, if they kept it overnight, it would mold and get rotten, and there would be maggots and bugs in it. But for some reason, on the Sabbath day, going into the 6th into the 7th day, they could eat it still, and it was still just as fresh as it was the first day. So they'd always remember the Sabbath as what God did for them in Egypt, what God did for them in the wilderness. And now we remember it as what God did for us from creation and what God did for us on the cross. So it marries both Old and New Testament, both Old Covenant and New. It's a beautiful thing, guys. It really is what God does for us. I hope to see you this Sunday, 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Bethany Church. We'll have a good time. We've got some cool activities planned and especially some fun lessons to learn about God and what he has in store for us in our own personal lives through the looking at his scriptures and his manual for life that he gives us. God bless you guys. I hope you have a great time. I wish I did some outtakes in this one because this is probably the 7th time I've recorded this. Probably at least. I've done quite a few. I kept messing it up, guys. Sorry.
I'm sorry, we seem to be having some technical difficulties. Oh, my apologies.
One of these days I'm going to show you the outtakes. But anyway, I hope to see you guys Sunday night, 6 p.m. I'll see you guys there. God bless.